Guys, welcome to this practice exam breakdown. This is the 2018-2019 slash 2019-2020 slash 2020-2021 math exam breakdown. So let's get right into it. First problem, Marcus's favorite casserole recipe requires 3 eggs and makes 6 servings. Marcus will modify the recipe by using 5 eggs and increasing all other ingredients in the recipe proportionally. What is the total number of servings the modified recipe will make? So there's a couple ways to go about this problem. First thing you could do, kind of the easy cheat way, I guess you could say, is notice that whatever number of eggs you have, you get double that in terms of servings. And since it's a proportional increase, that means that there's a ratio. You're basically just going to do times 2 for whatever number of eggs. So if we take the number of eggs here and we times that by 2, we end up getting 10 servings. And I think that's what this problem is asking for. So your answer is C, which is 10. Now that's one way to look at it. Now, if you didn't notice that your first time through, there's another way to do it with by drawing out a proportion. So your ratio of eggs to servings is always going to be the same because, again, this is your proportion. This right here, this thing is your proportion. And you have to stay true to this every single time, regardless of what number of eggs or servings you have. So if you have 3 eggs, you're always going to have 6 servings. And so let's just write eggs, divide by 6 servings. Now, if you have 5 eggs, that means you're going to have X number of servings. So you could create this proportion right here and solve that for X, cross multiply. So you do cross multiply this way. Let me do it in a different color so you can kind of see. This way and then this way. So you get 3x equals 30. And then you divide both sides by 3, you get X equals 10. And that is the same answer as what we wanted. And this X, again, like I said, that's your servings. That corresponds to 5. So that's kind of how that one works out. 2 different ways to do it. Keep in mind the first way is a little easier. It's a bit faster. But this second way works as well. So your answer there is C, which is 10. All right, let's move on to the next problem. 35-member history club is meeting to choose a student government representative. The members decide that this person cannot be any of the 3 officers of the club. What is the probability that this person, who is a member of the club but not an officer, will be chosen? So there's 35 people, right? 3 officers. Three officers. That means that essentially the total pool of people that you can choose from is 35 minus 3. That's 32. There's 32 possible candidates. So possible candidates, I'll write that. All right, that's the number of total people that you could possibly choose. Now, what we have to notice here is that it's a simple probability problem. You can kind of tell by the answer options. You're going to have some sort of ratio. Let me describe how probability works. In order to write probability as a ratio, let's write P stands for probability. Probability of an event equals the number of desired outcomes, right, number desired, divided by number total. We already found our total. And we know that the number of desired outcomes is just 1. So our answer is going to be 1 outcome that we want, which is Heroku, divided by 32. And so your answer is K, which is 1 out of 32. All right, simple probability. For what value of X is this equation true? What you have to notice is that if I do 2 to the X equals 2 to the Y, that means that X equals Y, because the base is the same. The base in this case is 2. This is what the base is, and X and Y are your exponents. This is kind of the same thing that's happening in this problem, except you have 2x plus 7 equals 15. Same exact process. You subtract 7 on both sides. You get 2x equals 8. Divide both sides by 2. X equals 4. Your answer is B. Simple algebra, you just have to notice the exponent property of if you have 2 bases that are the same, which you do in this case, the bases are 2 and 2, then in that case you will have this kind of behavior, and it's very easy at that point. Let the function f be defined as f of x equals this thing right here. What is f at 3? Essentially, we're going to notice how x corresponds to 3. We're just going to plug 3 in here. We're going to plug 3 in here. See what we get. 5 times 3 squared minus 7 times 4 times 3 plus 3. You could do this on your calculator. I would recommend just simplifying, writing it out. So you don't want to make a parenthesis error on your calculator, plugging all this in. It might be easier and faster to just simplify it by hand. So 5 times 9, 3 squared is 9, minus 7 times, let's simplify what's on the inside first, 12 plus 3. Let me rewrite that. That's a bit messy. 12 plus 3. And then 45 minus 7 times 15. And that equals 45 minus, what's 7 times 15? Let me calculate that really quick. 7 times 15 is 105. So I'm getting negative 60. And that seems to be the answer, J. Simple algebra, again, you just gotta work on your simplification. If you messed up here, maybe you made a sign error with this negative, or maybe you made an error with distributing this properly, the 4 times 3 and everything. But apart from that, it's a pretty simple problem. A wallet containing 5 this many, 7 this many, and then 8 of the others returned to its owner. The wallet's owner will reward the finder by drawing one bill randomly. What is the probability that the bill will be a $20 bill? Same exact thing that I drew out here. Probability is desired divided by total. So we have desired. How many desired outcomes are there? Let's write that down. Desired is just the number of $20 bills. There's 8 $20 bills. And the total outcomes, well, there's 20 different bills in there, right? Or in essence, it's going to be 5 plus 7 plus 8. You add up each of these because that's the total amount. So I believe that's 20. So if we do our desired divided by total, we get, if you simplify that, you should get 2/5. And that is answer option D, which is the answer. Simple, always remember desired divided by total. ABC Book Club charges $40 fee monthly plus $2 per book read in that month. The Easy Book Club charges $35 monthly plus $3 per book. How many books must be read in 1 month for them to be the same, for the charges to be the same? So this is an application of linear equations problem. If you remember your linear equations form, the y and x are just variables you can plug in. You can plug in a value for y, you can plug in a value for x. But the main thing here is that you have an m and you have a b. M is a rate. It's your rise over run. It's your slope. And b is your set value. I'll call it your set value because it'll make sense in the context of the problem. It's your set value or your y-intercept. That's what the actual thing is. But we can apply this formula to this problem, and you'll see problems like this on every single ACT math exam. So I wanted to bring up this formula. It's the easy way to solve these. Now, what we want to do is we want to represent each situation, this top one here and the bottom one here, each with its own equation. So there's going to be an equation for the yellow highlighted situation and then one for the other. So we're going to have y equals something x plus something, and then again y equals something x plus something. One of these, and the y value is going to be our number of dollars. The x value is going to be the number of books that we read. You could do it in reverse, but in the context of the problem, you're given a rate. You're given a preset value. The set value is actually in dollars. So this value here is going to be in dollars. This value is going to be here in dollars. And you can kind of see where this is going. You're going to end up plugging in 40 for this one. This is the first one. Equation 1, equation 2. And then for the other one, you're going to end up plugging in 35. Preset value. And then you plug in your rates. Your rate, $2 per book, kind of like miles per hour or feet per second or whatever it is. You have a rate that goes in the m. That's why I wrote rate here in terms of how the equation is used. So we have 2x plus 40, and then we have 3x, so 2 and then 3, each goes to its own place. So that's kind of how this works. And then now that we have these two equations, let me kind of clean this up a little bit. We have y equals 2x plus 40. And then we have y equals 3x plus 35. And now what's the question asking? We want to find how many books must be read for the charges to be equal. We want the y values to be equal, and we want to find the x value, the number of books, for the y values to be equal. So what we could do, we could just make the y's equal to each other. And you can literally do that by just taking this y and plugging it up here. Or in essence, plugging this up here for this y. And here's what this looks like. It's essentially going to be, let me get rid of this. You're going to have 2x plus 40 equals 3x plus 35. Now it's just an algebra problem, so you can subtract 2x on both sides. So you get 40 equals x plus 35, and then we can subtract 35 on both sides. And so you'll get x equals 5, and your answer is H, which is x equals 5. So after 5 books, you will see that the cost will be equal. Now, if you don't want to do all this algebra that I did down here, you can easily just plug these two equations onto your graphing calculator and find the x value where they intersect. Don't make the mistake of finding the y value. I believe that y value would probably end up being 75 or something like that. Maybe that's why they put that answer option there, so that maybe they can trick you. Actually, maybe that's not what the y value is. I'm looking here. I don't think you'd end up getting that value. Regardless, yeah, you could just plug these two equations into your calculator, find their intersection point, the x value where they intersect, and just go about solving it that way. All right, that's another way to do this. All right, moving on. Number 7, so in the parallelogram below, AC is a diagonal. The measure of ABC, so okay, it's a parallelogram, which means this is equal to this, and these two sides are equal to each other. So keep that in mind. We want to read through the directions here so we know what exactly this shape is and how it works. AC is a diagonal. Okay, that makes sense. It's the diagonal. And then we have the measure is 40 and 57. Those are already labeled. What is CAD? All right, what we have to notice is that this is basically, imagine this was originally like a square like this, or a rectangle, and then it basically got dragged this way, in a way. And what we know about rectangles and squares is that their angle measures are all the same, or at least if I draw like a four-sided figure here, we know this angle is equal to this, and this angle, I mean, they're all the same, they're all 90. Now, if I stretch that out, the thing you should notice is that the opposite angles are going to be the same. This angle is actually equal to this one. And you can kind of see they look similar too. But essentially this shape is symmetric almost about this axis. It's like this axis is kind of like a mirror, not really a mirror, but there is some symmetry going on, at least for these are opposite angles. And that's why they are the same. So for that reason, we can make this equal to 40. And then we can just see this as a triangle and solve this triangle here. So we'll have 180, which is the total number of degrees that make up a triangle on the inside. And then we subtract 57 and we subtract 40 to get our final value, whatever that is. I believe it's 97 maybe, or something, 83. I think it should be 83. Let me just double check that. And minus 40. Yeah, it is 83, which is D, which is the answer. So the basic process, again, what I want you to notice here is that this is essentially a stretched rectangle. And since it's a stretched rectangle and it's a parallelogram, since it's a parallelogram, that means that these sides are the same and these two are the same. And so based on that, you know that these angles are also going to be the same. That's just the nature of how a parallelogram works, or in this case, it's almost like a rhombus, but it's the same idea. So you can take a look at that, make sure that makes sense to you. You can almost see, based on like the sides here, see how this is paired with this one, and then the other, this is paired with this one. They are almost like, there's some symmetry happening here, and you can see how it's kind of opposite, it's kind of similar. For that reason, these two are the same. So just keep that in mind. That's the key here in this problem. All right, for when we plug in x equals half, let's just plug in x equals half, see what happens. So I would simplify the numerator first, so you get 4, 8 times half. Do that on your calculator, 8 times 0.5. 4 minus 3 divided by half. Let's keep simplifying the numerator. 1 divided by half. If you don't know what that actually is, it's 2, but to simplify it, you could do 1 divided by 0.5. Do that on your calculator, you get 2. Simple problem. Plug and chug. Make sure you distribute things in the correct order. First solve this, and then do the 4 minus 3, and then make sure you know what dividing by half actually means. In the standard coordinate plane, what is the midpoint of the line segment that has these endpoints? For midpoint, it's a very simple procedure. You just find the average of the x values. In this case, the average of 1 and 3. And then you find the average of the y values, which in this case is 8, negative 4. So let's do it step by step. The midpoint, average of x, average of y. So what is the average of the x values? The average of 3 and 1, you could just find it. 3 plus 1 divided by 2, because there's 2 values. You get 2. In essence, it's just the value that's perfectly in the center between the two. So we already know that our answer has to have a 2 in there, so D is the answer. Now we can also do it from the y value. Let's find the average of 8 plus negative 4 and divide that by 2. You should get 2 as well. That's what this is. And so you get 2 comma 2. Again, just look for the average of the x and y. The fluctuation is shown of some water depth. Which of the following values gives a positive difference between the greatest depth and the least depth shown in the graph? Okay, so depth is given here. So as we go up, it gets deeper, kind of opposite of what you'd expect in some in like a pool or something. But it's okay. Just think of it in reverse. So we see that the depth is basically always going to be between these two red lines. It's always going to be there. Now it's asking what's the difference between these two depths. We see one is at 12, the other is at 6. So you're going to have 12 minus 6, and that's your difference, 6. Your positive difference between the depths. Number 10 is G, yes. In Cherokee County, the fine for speeding is $17 for each mile an hour. The person is over the speed limit. Someone was fined $221 when the limit was 30. Kirk was fined for traveling at what speed? So again, we can look at this as a y equals mx plus b scenario. And again, I'm bringing this up because it's the same idea. You have a rate, and then you have a set value. What's our rate in this case? We have $17 per hour the person is over the limit. Okay, that's your rate. So it's your 17. And then we also have a preset value. In this case, there is no preset value because, or like y-intercept. In essence, it's just 0. Because they don't say that the base fee for any speeding is like $10 or $30. It doesn't say anything like that. You just have a rate. So for every 1 mile, you go up a certain value. If I was to graph this, if I was to put in a table For 1 mile over, it would be 17. For 2, it would be 34. For 3, it would be whatever 17 times 3 is. You can see where this is going. And you take this all the way up to whatever this guy had at 221. So in order to find the 221, you have to apply a formula. And that's what the y equals mx plus b can do for you. Let me write this out again. Again, y and x stay the same. We're not going to do anything with y and x. But with m, we have a rate, right? I told you the rate is 17 because that's how much we're increasing with every, that's how much we're increasing in y, or in dollars, for every increase in miles per hour. So this is your rise over run. Something you've probably learned in your algebra class. Rise over run, your rise is dollars, y, your x is miles per hour. Delta just means change, so difference in y divided by difference in x. So that's something, that's one way to conceptualize what's happening. Now, moving on. So like I said, the rate is 17. So let's just, and this is going to be 0, like I said. So we have y equals 17x, where y is dollars, x is miles per hour over. All right, so we know that the fine was 221, so we can just plug in 221 for y, 17x, and you can solve this for x to find the miles per hour over. And so you get x equals 13, I believe. Let me just double check that. 221 divided by 17, you get 13 as x. Now, the answer is not f, because they're asking for what speed. This is how many they were going over. This person went 13 over the limit. So you got to read the question carefully. Now, it tells you what they're originally, what the speed limit is. So you just add 13 to 30 and you get 43. That's how much the person was actually going. So got to read in between the lines. Also got to notice that you have this kind of relationship. We've already seen it twice. It's very common. It's something that we see a lot popping up in these math exams. What is the sum of the solutions of the two equations below? So essentially, you're going to get an x value. You're going to get a y value. And you basically need to add x plus y. Let's solve for x. If you do 8x equals 12, you can divide both sides by 8. Do this on your calculator if you're not sure. You'll get x equals 3 over 2, or 1.5. And then for this one, 2y plus 10 equals 22. Subtract 10 on both sides. Simple algebra. You get 2y equals 12. Y equals 6. Divide both sides by 2. I should have said that. So you have y equals 6 and x equals 1.5. So you're going to get 1.5 plus 6, which equals 7.5. 13 is, in fact, B. Yep, there you go. The average of 5 distinct scores has the same value as the median of the 5 scores. The sum of the 5 scores is 420. What is the sum of the 4 scores that are not the median? Okay, so we have 5 scores. Let's just write them down. The average has the same value as the median. So the average has the same value as the median. If we know that if these add up to 420, that means that 420 divided by the number of scores, which is 5, is going to give you the average, right? So 420 divided by 5, I think that's 84 if I'm not mistaken. Yes, so that's 84. This is your middle value. That's your median or your mean. Now, it's saying that this is your median and your mean. Okay. Now it's asking what is the sum of the 4 scores that are not the median, aka the mean. So if you're already given the sum of all of them, you just subtract this and get your answer. And you should get 420 minus 84. That equals 336. And your answer is, in fact, let me just make sure it's H. 14 is H. Simple process, taking this fact and, calculating your mean, aka your median in this case, because it's the same as they say, by subtracting 420 minus 420 divided by 5. This is basically what you did in this problem. And you got 336. Simple process. What is the value of the expression below? Okay, I like these kinds of problems. It's just a matter of doing things in the right order. So let me get rid of this really quick, clean this up. All right, so to do things in the right order, take it on the innermost absolute value signs at a time. So we're going to rewrite everything with each step. So this part here, what can we rewrite it as? Negative 8 plus 4. Negative 8 plus 4, if you're not sure, do that on your calculator. You get negative 4, absolute value of negative 4, minus 3 minus 9. Absolute value of 3 minus 9 is negative 6. Okay? So we simplified it a little bit. Now we just got to simplify these absolute values now. So 4 minus absolute value of negative 6 is going to be 6. Okay, we're kind of at the same step that we were at first. Now we just have one thing to do. We can simplify this as absolute value of negative 2, which is going to be 2. And your answer is, in fact, for 15, it is D. All right, Simple process. You just got to take it step by step. You see, I broke it down into 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. If you do it all in one step, you're going to make a mistake. Also, keep in mind, if you have an absolute value on the outside and there's nothing here like a -3 multiplying everything or something like that, your answer can never actually be a negative. So if you're guessing on these problems and you just really don't know, try to cancel out the ones that are negative because it's absolute value. There's no way it can be negative, all right? Keep that in mind. Now, if they have a problem, like I said, if they multiply by like a -1 or a -10 out here, then yeah, you could have it. But there's nothing here. It's just absolute value that is encompassing everything. So keep that in mind. Which of the following expressions is equivalent to x to the 2 over 3? Now, if you're not familiar with the skill, I recommend you go over the properties of exponents problem set in the course. You'll get at least 20 problems that are going through this, maybe even more depending on when you take them. So you'll see more problems like this. Now, x to the 2 over 3, this is the same thing as x to the third root, or x to the 1 over 3 squared. There's two different ways to write it. That equals x to the 2 over 3. Again, if you're not really sure what I'm doing, I recommend you look at the problem set or look at the skill study guide. All that stuff is discussed. So I just wrote the 3 different ways you could write it, and you can see that this is the answer. The answer is 16 is K. This one is just dividing it. Dividing is not the same thing as exponent. This one is multiplying by 2. That's not the same thing as an exponent. This one's close, but this is actually x to the 3 over 2. We're not doing third power. We're doing third root. Okay. This one's close as well. It's doing x to the 1 over 3. But we need to have a 2 in there as well. So that one's wrong as well. Okay. Canceling out answer options works for this kind of question. In the standard coordinate plane, what is a slope? Just rewrite the equation in the form y equals mx plus b. You see this formula just keeps coming back, right? Okay, so I want to get the y isolated. That's basically the goal of this formula. So let's do that here. Isolate y. In order to isolate y, we first need to move the 5 away from it, and then we need to move the 7 away from it. Let's do that step by step. So I'm going to take the original, rewrite it. Let's get rid of the 5. So we get 4x minus 5 equals 7y. Okay, and because, again, I did subtraction by 5 because originally it's being added. Okay, so we need to do opposites if we want to cancel things out. Now we have to get rid of this 7 being multiplied. So we can divide both sides by 7. So then we get 4x minus 5 divided by 7 equals y. All right, so we isolated y, but it still doesn't really look like the form that we want. And that's because we need to divide everything by 7 on this side. We actually need to distribute that divide by 7. So what that'll look like, y, I'm going to kind of switch sides here. 4 over 7, I took the 4 divided by 7, times x, you can write it like that, minus 5 divided by 7. And now we have it in the form that we want. We have the slope 4 over 7. 17 is B, according to the answer key. For which of the following conditions will the sum of the integers m and n always be an odd integer? Okay, if you're really not, first thing I recommend you do, look through the answer options. Maybe you'll find the answer option just by looking through them all your first time through. Now you might be lost after them, so we'll just kind of go through them. M is an odd integer, n is an odd integer, m and n are both odd, m and n are both even. M is odd, but n is even. What I would do here is try to cancel things out. Now, if you know m and n are both even, okay, let's just think of an example. 2 plus 2 equals 4. Definitely not odd. That's even. So this case, we found a scenario where it does not work because this says always. This is asking for a case where it's always going to work. And we already found a case for here where it doesn't work. Let's just do the same thing for all of these. Both odd. Let's try that. 3 plus 3 equals 6. That is definitely not odd. That is even. So we can take out h as well. Now we narrow down from 5 answer options to 3. So we're getting closer and closer. Let's try f and g. So f, m is an odd integer. All right, it doesn't matter what m is. And let's just make m equal to 3, n equals to 3. They're both odd, but it just said only m has to be odd. Now you can see that if I make both of them odd again, just like I did in the last example, you're going to get an even number. You're going to get 6 if you add those together. So that's out. I can do the same thing with g. Similar example. With g, I can make n odd. So I'll just make m equal 3 again. N equal 3. And again, we're going to end up getting 6. So this is out as well. Your answer is K. Because you need to have one even plus one odd plus even in this case, to always get an odd number. That's how that works, all right? Test cases. If you have, make sure that your cases align with what's being asked. Sometimes it might say that they're consecutive integers, like, so in this case, you have to use numbers like 0, 1, or 2, 3, or 100, 101. I recommend sticking as if you can stick to 0 and 1, but because they're just easier to work with, especially 0. But again, Different problems have different formats. You can bring those up to us via tutoring sessions if you have access to that. All right. The lengths of the two legs of the right triangle, emphasis on right, that's very important, that'll make it helpful to solve this quickly, are shown below. The midpoint of AB is how many inches from A? Midpoint of AB is this. The midpoint is going to be somewhere here, right? How many inches from A? Okay, in order to find the midpoint, first we need to know how long this is, this entire thing. So let's use the distance formula. Actually, there's an easier way to do it. Just use the Pythagorean theorem. So 32 squared plus 24 squared equals, let's just make this C. If you do the calculation, you'll get, let me just do it for you. Take the square root of both sides. So C equals, I believe you're going to just get 40. Plus, I'm just typing this in on my calculator. And you get 40. C equals 40. All right, so that's the first step. Now, the midpoint, if we know this entire thing is 40, the midpoint is going to divide this into a segment of 20 and then another segment of 20. So from A or from B, the midpoint is just 20 units away. And the answer for 19 is B. In DEF, the length of DE is 30 inches, square root of 30 inches, and length of EF is 3 inches. What is the length of DF? So let's just draw this out. So we have DEF. It says DE is square root of 30. EF is 3. And then we have this one here. Now, the problem here is they only give you two things. They give you side length and side length. That doesn't really control what this third one can be. It can be anything. You could redraw this triangle like this. DEF, and it'll still meet the conditions that are described. Square root of 30, 3. We still don't know what this is. And clearly this here is much longer than this one here. So this triangle could be anything. The length could be anything. And for that reason, it cannot be determined. If you took geometry and you went over rules like angle, side, angle, or side, angle, side, or things like that, side, side, angle, you'll remember that in order to fully identify a triangle and limit it in terms of the possibilities of what it could be like, you essentially need to have three pieces of information about it. You need to have either three sides or three angles, or not three angles, but you need to have two angles and a side, or two sides and an angle, or something like this. In this case, we're given side, so SS, but we're not given any angles or another side. So if we had three sides, then of course we could determine the last one. If we had a side, and we had an angle, then sure, we could also possibly figure it out there. But there's an ambiguity here, and for that reason, we cannot identify that third side. So this problem, that's how that works. Laura plans to paint the 8-foot-high rectangular walls of her room, and before she buys paint, she needs to know the area. Also 8 foot high, let's keep that in mind. Two walls are 8 feet wide and the other are 15, so there's two each. The combined area of the one window and the door is 60. What is the area that she'll paint? So she's painting 4 walls, okay? So they're all 8 feet high. 2 of them are 10 feet and 2 of them are 15 feet in width. So we can, let's write out the full area of the 4 walls. Think of your room. So we have 8 foot times 10 plus, that's wall 1, plus 8 foot times 10, wall 2. So 1, 2, plus 8 foot times 15, plus 8 foot times 15. Okay, so we have the 4 walls, that's the total area. And then we have to subtract the area of the 60 square feet that we're not painting. Okay, so if you do all this, you just basically make this calculation. You're going to do, you can turn this into 2 times 8 times 10 plus 2 times 8 times 15. I'm just rewriting this. It's the exact same. This is equivalent to this. I'm just rewriting it to make it easier for me to write it concisely. This is going to be your answer. Let me do the calculation. So it's going to be 160 plus 16 times 15 minus 60. So you get 360. And your answer, 340. And your answer is B for 21, which is 340. All right, simple process. You have to visualize what's happening. You could, if you really wanted to, you could draw out each room, each like wall, like in looking at the wall and like kind of draw out, okay, there's a door on this wall, so I need to take that out. Maybe the door and window is on the same wall. Whatever it is, you can do that. That's up to you. But I like to just visualize it in my head because that problem wasn't too bad for visualization. The length of a rectangle is 5 inches longer than the width. The perimeter of the rectangle is 40 inches. What is the width? So this is a word to algebra translation problem. So we'll just go through it really quickly. Length of a rectangle, I'm going to have two variables, length and width. Okay. So length is 5 inches longer than the width. So width plus 5. Okay? If I take the width and I add 5 to it, I get the value of the length. That's what's being said. The perimeter of the rectangle is 40 inches. Perimeter. Okay, how do we represent the perimeter? I could just say P equals 40. But now we have 3 variables, L, W, and P, and we don't really know how to solve for them because we only have 2 equations. So you need to have an equation for your perimeter, and you can use L and W to create an equation for the perimeter. If I draw out a rectangle, you'll see that this is L, this is L, this is W, this is W. So W plus L, that is your perimeter. And that's the same thing as P equals 2L plus 2W. So we can use this and equate it to 40. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, we have 2 equations, we have 2 unknowns. We can plug basically one equation or one unknown into the other and solve. So I'm going to take this L, or in essence take this, and plug it in down here. Let's do that. 2 times W plus 5 plus 2W equals 40. So now we can solve this equation for W. So 2W plus 10 plus 2W equals 40. And so we get 4W equals 4W equals, subtract 10 on both sides, equals 30. W equals 30 divided by 4 equals 7.5. Okay, what is the width? That's the width, 7.5 in inches. There you go. So that's kind of how this one works. Just a matter of, you got to create the equations. This is the hardest part. Once you have the equations and you plug everything in like this, then you're basically set. It's just simple algebra. But that's kind of the visualization that's required. You have to understand the word to algebra translation. There is a problem set with problems just like this called word to algebra translation. Word to alg, yada, yada, yada. So I just want to let you know you can practice that as well from the practice page. That will help you. All right, let's move on to the next one. Next problem we have 88%. Oh, this is actually the same exact skill. It's word to algebra translation. 8% of 60 is 1/5 of what number? 8%, okay, 0.08. That's how decimal to percent works. If you're not familiar about that, look at the skill study guide. 8% of 60, you just multiply them. If you do this, you'll get 8% of 60 is equals 1/5 of what number? We'll make that equal to x and just solve for x. 0.08 times 60. So we're basically just gonna solve for x. 4.8 equals 1/5. That's 8. X, multiply both sides by 5, so you get 5 multiplied by 5. 5 times 4.8 is your answer. 24. X equals 24. And if you're not sure, you can check. Another way to do it is plug each of the answer options into your equation, or kind of think of the equation in your head and make sure that, okay, if I take this number and I multiply it and I divide it by 5, does it equal this? If you know what that is. That's another way to check. You could do the problem in reverse, kind of use the answer options to your advantage. Cheat with the answer options. That is definitely not, nothing wrong with that. Armin is trying to decide whether to buy a season pass to his college basketball team's 20 home games this season. The cost of a ticket is $175. Season pass is $175. What is the minimum number of home games in order for the season pass to be worth it? To be less than the total. Yeah, so basically he has to find how many times we have to go to make it worth it. If you have like a membership at Six Flags or something, you might, this might sound familiar, like how many times we have to go for it to actually be worth it. All right, so in this case, let's just find how many individual tickets we have to buy to get to 175. So 14 times some number x equals 175. So if I divide both sides by 14, I'll get my number x that I need to buy each time. Divide by 14, so you get x equals 12.5. So if you bought exactly 12.5 individual tickets, it would be the exact same price of just buying a season pass. Now, the answer in this case is H, and that's because it's asking for, or sorry, is it actually H? My apologies. The answer is J. 24 is J. Yeah, it's J because if you go up to 13, then you exceed 175. And that is with if you use this rate, the $14, because 14 times 13, that's greater than 175. That's greater than the season pass. Now, this is asking for what number must the person buy for the season pass to be less than the total cost. So you want the season pass to be less. That's why 13 is the answer, because this statement is true. Essentially, it's asking, like I said, at what number of total individual tickets will the season pass be worth it? And for that reason, the answer is J. All right, moving on. Scientific notation, I like to break it up into two parts. Again, the only reason you can break it up is because it's multiplication. All right, break it up like this, and then like this. Let's do the left part. Do this on your calculator, you get 3. So you immediately know you're going to have a 3 in your answer. So you can take out D and E. If you do the left part, if you remember your properties of exponents from the properties of exponents problem set, this is just going to be 10 to the negative 7 minus negative 11. Again, because it's division, that ends up being 10 to the negative 7 plus 11, 10 to the 4th. So you're going to have a 10 to the 4th in your answer. So you do this times this. That's your answer. A circle has center this and passes through this. What are the coordinates of B? Okay, so let me draw this out. Visualization is always a great idea. Negative 1, 2. And it also passes through the point 2, 6. So 2, 6. Let me actually graph this. It would be a bit easier to visualize things that way. So let's graph it. So negative 1, 2. That'd be like here. And then 2, 6. Let's draw that right there. So this is what your circle will look like. Pretty bad circle, but it's okay. So this is your C, this is A. Now it says line AB is a diameter, so it's all the way across, and B is here. So what are the coordinates of B? The way that I would do this is kind of figure out what you have to do to go from C to A. Do that in a different color. What do you have to do to go from here to here? And do that exactly in reverse to go from here to there. So in order to go from C to A, you have to go from negative 1 to 2 upward, or sorry, to the right. So you have to go 3 to the right. And then you have to go from 2 to 6 upwards. So you go plus 4. We're going to do that exact opposite to go from go to the other direction. So from C to B, we're going to go down 3, left 4. So if we take C, we're going to go down 3, left 4. I'm just taking this, like I said, I'm just taking this point here and modifying it down here. Negative 1 minus 4, and then we're going to go down 3. So 2 minus 3. So you get negative 5, negative 1. And your answer is G. If the answer, let me just check the answer key. Or sorry, your answer is H. Let me see where I made the mistake. So we're going left 3. Oh, I made the mistake of doing down 3. You're actually going left 3. Apologies for that. So you're going down 4. Yeah. Okay, I see. Down 4, left 3. So if you're going left 3, you're going to end up getting negative 4, negative 2. Yeah, that would work. This turns to a 3, this turns to a 4. That's the answer. So it's H. Apologies for the error. I make mistakes too. Which of the following expressions is a factor of x to the third minus 64? You have to remember the difference of cubes formula. There's actually an easier way to do it. What you could do is you could graph it, and you'll get the cubic equation that looks like, let's see. Let me just graph it really quick so I can draw it for you. But essentially, you'll find that the answer ends up being, A, I think. So let's just graph it. X to the third minus 64. So you'll get this. This is your graph. It basically looks like this, something like that, going this way to the right. And so this point here, this is a very bad drawing, but this point here is x equals 4. And you know that since x equals 4 is 0, that means that x minus 4 equals 0. Somewhere in the equation, you're going to have this factor. And so x equals 4 is your 0. And that's where you know that the x minus 4 is a factor. Now, if you remember your difference of cubes formula, then you know that a third minus b third equals a minus b times a squared minus, is it minus 2 minus ab? No, plus ab plus b squared. And so this isn't factorable in this case, but this here, this part here would actually be x minus 4. X minus 4. And that's because this is x third minus 4 third. 64 is just 4 to the third. So that's where the 4 comes from. Again, just graphing it, that'll let you know what your 0 is. Don't make the mistake of choosing x plus 4 because you think, oh, it's 4 units to the right of the origin, so it's x plus 4. No, that's actually backwards. All right. Average of a list of 4 numbers is 90. A new list of 4 numbers has the same first 3 numbers as the original list, but the fourth number is, okay, so 4 numbers is 90. A new list has the same first 3 numbers, but the fourth number in the original list is 80, and the fourth number of the new list is 96. What is the average of the new list of numbers? So does it say that the two lists have the same average? Let me read through this again. So its average is 90. So we could assume, let's just try to write out some hypothetical version of the first list. Let's just say it was all 90s, and the average would in fact be 90, right? A new list of it has this new list has the same first three numbers, so these three, as the original list, but the fourth number in the original list is 80. The fourth number in the original list is 80. So we have to actually modify our original list here, make the fourth number 80. Let's just make it 80. And in order to maintain the average of 90 for all of them, we have to add 10, like I did. I just subtracted 10 from one of the values, right? In order to maintain that average, I have to add 10 to the rest of them, or I could just add it to 1. Let's just do it here. But the fourth number in the original list is 80, and the fourth number in the new list is 96. What is the average of the new list of numbers? So the new list is going to be this. You can just find the average of this. Let me do that really quick. You'll get 90 plus 100 plus 96 divided by 4. You get 94. The answer for 28 is H. So again, write it out. If you're not sure, like doing this all in your head is going to be extremely confusing. It was confusing for me at first too. If you write it out, it becomes a lot easier. You have to just think, okay, what do I do to modify my list? You might have been confused when I went from 80 to from 90 and 90 to 80 and 100. Again, remember that this, in order for the average of a set of values to be the same, by changing one number or two numbers or whatever it is, you have to maintain the same sum of values. The sum of these values was always 360, either when it was all 90s or when it was two 90s, 100 and an 80. So for that reason, this is the exact same series almost as the original that was all 90s when it comes to just finding the average. The number A is here on the number line. One of the following shows the location of A squared. What I would do is just find A squared. So it's going to be negative 2.5 squared. That gives you 6.25. Do it on your calculator. Do not do negative 2.5 squared, because that gives you negative 6.25. It's saying you have to take the entire A, inclusive of the negative inside, and then square it. So you're going to have 6.25 right here. The answer for number 29 is E. Maria ordered a pizza. She ate only 2/9 of it and gave the remaining pizza to her three brothers. So what fraction did each brother receive? So the original amount of pizza, if you were to divide it into 9 portions, actually forget that. So she ate 2/9 of it, right? So the original was 1, right? There was one whole pizza. We can make that 9/9. This was the original amount when they bought the pizza, when the delivery guy brought it over. So it was 9/9, and then after she ate it, it was 9/9 minus 2/9. That's what's left over. So then it was 7/9 left over after Maria ate it. Okay. Now the rest of it goes to 3 brothers, so we can basically just divide this by 3. 7/9 divided by 3. So that's the same thing as doing 7/9. If you know how to do fraction division, it's just the same as dividing by numbers. Same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 3 is just 1/3. So you get 7/27. The answer for number 30 is J. So we're halfway through the exam. I don't know how many minutes it's been, but regardless, it doesn't matter because I am describing these problems to you. But if I can finish in 60 minutes or 70, that would be great. The number 1001 is the product of the prime numbers 7, 11, 13. Knowing this, what is the prime factorization of 30,030? Basically, what you have to notice is that this number, the relation between them two is a factor of 30. So to go from here to here, you actually just multiply by 30. So, keeping that in mind, we basically take the prime factorization, the original, which equals 1001, and multiply that by 30. And that'll give you 30,030. Now, in order for this to be a prime factorization, you have to have only prime numbers. So you have to actually find the prime factorization of 30, which is going to be 2 times 5 times 3. And then you add that, substitute that into here, times this, and then your answer ends up being this right here, because you have 2 times 5 times 3 times 7 times 11 times 13. And if you check this, it actually ends up equaling the correct value. I believe if you check the other answer options, I think they all actually end up equaling 30,030, or at least most of them probably do. So that's the challenging part, but in this case, they all have to be prime numbers. D is probably going to equal the same, but this isn't a prime number. B is wrong because this is not a prime number. So that's out. So and A is wrong as well because this is not a prime number. And it also does not include 11 in there. So for some reason, that doesn't work either. C is close because they add the 2 and the 5, but they get a 7. Oh, sorry, the 7 is the original. They actually ignore the... They're ignoring a value. They're ignoring a 3 in here. There should be a 3. So C is out for that reason. All right, moving on. Intern at the parks. Okay, 3 side lengths. So the scale drawing, 1 inch represents 1.5 feet. So this would actually be like 40 times 1.5, and that would give you like 60 feet. Just to keep in mind. We want to make sure that we read all the information. You don't have to read super fast, but you want to read everything. What is the area in square inches of the scale drawing of the park? So to find the area, what you could do is basically you could break it up into 2 shapes. So you have this one here, and then you add the area of this one here. Or you could look at it as a trapezoid. Imagine that you average 28 and 40, you'd get 34. So imagine that this is basically a shape like this with the average width of 34, and then you just multiply that by 16. So 16 times 34, 544, that's what I got. The answer for 32 is G. Both methods work. Again, the average method, when I found the average, I just did 40 plus 28 divided by 2, that equals 34. That's your width. That's how the trapezoid area rule works. You're just finding the average length, because this is a trapezoid. So you're finding the average length, the average width, I should say, and then multiplying that by the height. All right, Makia's proposal includes installing a fence on the perimeter. What is the perimeter in feet of the park? Feet, not inches, feet. Let's find the perimeter. Obviously, it's going to be 40 plus 16 plus 28. Let's add those. 40 plus 16 plus 38. And so you get, 28. You get 84, but then you have to add this. So how do you find this? I would think of it in terms of a triangle where this length is 16. This diagonal is what you're looking for. The challenge is, what's this length? It's just going to be the difference between 28 and 40, so it's going to be 12. And then you can find this using Pythagorean theorem. So you get 12 squared plus 16 squared equals c squared. And so c equals 20. So you add 84 plus 20, you get 104. This is inches. Now you have to multiply this by 1.5 to get your answer of E. 33 is E, which is 156. That's feet. Because remember the scale drawing. This is why I brought this up. Length of the south side is what percent of the north side? So we're going to basically just divide south by north. We're not going to do the opposite because, I mean, if you did, let's just do this. I'll just show you. So it's 40 divided by 28. You should get this number here. 34 is H. Just do that on your calculator. You get 0.142, yada, yada, yada. It goes on. So this is the closest answer. It's 100, or sorry, it's not 0.42. It's 1.42. And so you have to multiply that by 100 to get it to a percent value. And that's how that works. The reason you don't do north divided by south is because if you did that, you get a value that's less than 1, and that doesn't match any of the answer options as a percent. So that's the indication there. Oh, another one of these sets. Okay. This person plans to build a 3-foot wide walkway around the outside. So basically what this thing is. Okay. And in order for them to do this, what will be the area of the top surface of the walkway? All right, simple enough. Basically, it's going to be the total area of this entire red shape divided by the area of this middle thing. And we're given dimensions for all that. We're given the purple dimensions, and we're given the red dimensions. So I'm just going to divide 36 times 30, area, larger area, and then subtract the purple, minus 30 times 24. And so you should get an answer of whatever 30 times 12 is. Is the answer 360? 35 is C, 360. You could just do this and you get 360. All right. Simple enough. It's just, if you want to find area, you can subtract areas like that. That's how it works. Mrs. Smith will install a ceiling fan in each room of the cabin and will place curtains over the 4 windows. Ceiling fan in every room and curtains over every window. All right. Each of the ceiling fans has a price of 52. The price of curtains for each small window is 39.5. And the price of curtains for the large is twice that for the small. Okay. Which of the following values is close to the total price? So let's take it piece by piece. First, we have ceiling fans. Ceiling fans, 52. So 52 for each room. How many rooms? 1, 2, 3. So we got 52 times 3. Now we have curtains over the 4 windows. How many windows we got? It tells us here. Let me erase some of these annotations. So we have 1 large and then 3 small. So we're going to have 52 times 3 plus the small is just 3 times 39.5. Again, I'm adding up all the costs. And then we have the 1 large window, and that's being multiplied by the 39.5, but it's times 2 because it's double the price. So if you add all this up, 36 ends up being the answer, option J. And let me just add it up for you. 52 times 3 is 156. 3 times 39.5 is 118.5. And then 2 times 39.5 is 79. If you add 79, 79 plus 118.5 plus 156, you get 353.5, which is answer option J. That's the closest one. You plan to roof the cabin on 2 consecutive days. Assuming that the chance of rain is independent of the day, what is the probability that it will rain on both days? They give you a probability of rain, 20% chance of rain each day. So the probability of it raining on one day is just 1 out of 5, which equals 0.2, which is 20%. All right, simple enough. Apologies, my notifications. Simple enough, right? Now, in order to actually find it for both days, this is a conditional and joint probability problem. There's a problem set on this. Conditional probability. Conditional and joint probability. You can check that out on your own. There's a problem set on the practice page discussing that. So I recommend if you are having trouble with this, you check that out. Now, 2 consecutive days. Basically what you do is you take the original probability and you multiply it the number of times that it's going to occur. So twice. So in this case you get, it's the same thing as doing 0.2 times 0.2. That'll give you an answer of 0.04, or the same thing as 1 over 25. 37 is A. All right, which of the following is an irrational number? If you don't know what an irrational number is, it's basically something that's a never-ending decimal. So pi, for example, 3.14159, I don't remember the rest. This is an irrational number. Why? Because you can never rationalize it. Like, you can't imagine all of it in your head. But a number like 2 or 3 or 4.5 or 4.6237, these are all rational. You can all think of them in your head. Same with 4 over 5 or 5 over 4. These are all rational. Okay, so we want to basically just go through and find which of these is a never-ending decimal. Just evaluate all of them on your calculator. You'll find that this one is a never-ending decimal. This one ends up being square root of 16, which is 4, because you can combine square roots like that. Again, check out the properties of exponents problem set if you're not sure. This one ends up being 8. This ends up being square root of 8 over 2, which is square root of 4, which is 2. This ends up being the exact opposite of this one, just inversed. That's going to be 1 over 2. So they're all rational, 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 except for the last one. A line is shown. What is the value of tan theta? Tan theta. So we're given, again, make this into a triangle. So we know opposite over adjacent. Remember SOHCAHTOA? If you're having trouble with that, check out these sine, cosine, tangent problem set. But tan theta always equals adjacent. So I wrote tan wrong. My bad. SOHCAHTOA. I was second guessing myself for a second. SOHCAHTOA. Maybe I should review that problem set too. But it's opposite over adjacent. Okay. So here's our opposite, 4 over 10. 4 over 10. And your answer is going to be, now obviously 4 over 10 is not there, but this simplifies to 2 over 5. 39 is D. That's correct. Which of the following, the equation, 2 solutions. So we're finding which of the equations has the solution set for this original equation. The way that you solve absolute value equations is you take the original and let me give you a simple example. X plus 3 equals 1. In order to solve this, you're going to have 2 equations. Equation 1 is basically just going to be x plus 3 equals 1. Equation 2 is going to be the same, except you're going to take x plus 3, make it negative, and then equal 1. You're going to solve both of these for x, and you're going to get value 1 and value 2. So we need to do the same thing here. Now, obviously, in this specific problem, we don't actually have to solve it. We just have to find which 2 equations give us the solution. So the way I would do it, immediately subtract 3 on both sides. So let's take this, and that equals 3 minus 5 on the right-hand side. That's 2. All right, so now we have this in the form that I just drew out before. So one of our answers is going to be 2x minus 8 equals 2. All right, we have to make sure that one of these answer options has to have a mention of this for number 1. So f is out, 2x minus 8 equals 2. Yep, that works here. This is out. This is, yeah, that shows up there. And so it shows up here too. So we took out 2 of the answer options. Now for the other one, you're going to have negative 2x minus 8 equals 2. And which of the answer options has this? J does not, because it has it equal to 8. This is close. It's close because they actually distribute the negative incorrectly. So this one here would actually simplify to negative 2x plus 8 equals 2 if you distribute the negative. They do not properly distribute the negative here. They actually, you're supposed to distribute to 2x and then to negative 8 and then to negative 8, and then negative 8 will turn to a positive 8. They keep this as a negative 8, so that's wrong. Answer is K. And let me just double check. 40 is K. Yep. The frequency chart below shows the cumulative number of people whose scores fell in certain ranges. So how many people scored in 71 to 80? Obviously, we're not given 71 to 80. It gives you all relative to 65. So what we can do is basically look at when we change from 65 to 70 and we go up to 80, how many are we adding? Because the only difference between this and this is the students that are in that 70 to 80 range, right? Because we increased from 70 to 80, we increased our threshold up to 80 from 70. So we can just find the change to go from there to there, and we see that the value is just 1. 13 minus 12. This is just number of people, 70 to 80, or 71 to 80, whatever it is. That's the idea. You're looking for the difference in the values. The number of decimals produced by an audio source can be modeled by this equation. I is intensity and K is a constant. How many decimals are produced by an audio source whose sound intensity is 1,000 times the value of K? So I would just plug this into the equation because I don't really know what to do here. Actually, I do because I've done this before, but I'm just visualizing, like telling you how I did it the first time. 1,000 times the intensity is 1,000 times the value of K. So you basically have 1,000 K divided by K, because I, in this case, this I up here, is equal to K times 1,000. It's the original K, just the same value, but times 1,000. That's what I is, okay? So you need to understand that relationship and write it out as an equation so you can solve this. Now this is clearly solvable because these K values just cancel each other out. So you're going to get D equals 10 log 1,000. And if you do this, you should get 30, I think. The answer is 42 is G. So do plug this into your calculator if you're not sure. You'll get log, so 1,000, let me just do it really quick. 1,000 log times 10. Yep, there you go, 30. Simple problem. Mario plays basketball on a town league team. The table gives Mario's scoring statistics for last season. How many points did Mario score playing basketball last season? So we have point totals. Each one has a different weight. We have attempts, and then we have success rate. So let's just take it piece by piece. 1 point free throw, 80 attempts, and 85 success. So each one is worth 1 point. There's 80 attempts, and 75% of them went in. Okay. And then we're going to add that to the second set of things. 2 points for each times 60 times 0.9 success rate. All right. And then the last one is basically the same exact 360.25 success rate. So if you add this up, you're going to get a unit of points. So you should end up getting 43 as C. I'll just add it up for you. So 80 times 0.75, that ends up equaling 60. 2 times 0.9, so 120 times 0.9, 108. And then 15 times 3 is 45. This ends up giving you 108 plus 45 plus 60, 213. There you go. The graph is in the coordinate plane, which is the following transformations when applied results in this. So we're basically going from this to this. How do we do that? Review transformations in the online problems. Transformations. There's also a skill study guide page article about this as well. You'll find that, or video, whatever it is. So check that out to review this. Now, when you go from x to x minus 6, or you go from x to x minus h, this right here, or this right here, is a translation h units right. Okay, when you subtract something from x itself, you're going h or 6 units right. If I said it was h instead of 6, for example. If I do x plus 6, this is actually to the left. Okay, it's kind of backwards. You'd expect like, oh, if I'm adding something, it would be to the right, and if I subtract this to the left, it's the other way around, because you actually do x minus h. If h is a negative number, then it would become x plus whatever the number is. So keep that in mind. So in this case, we're obviously subtracting 6, so we're going to go 6 units right. 44 is F. Toby wants to find the volume of a solid toy cylinder. He fills a container 8 by 6 by 10 to a depth of 4. He totally submerges, and then the height goes from 4 to 6.6. So what's the volume? So let's visualize this. This is the way I would kind of think of it. This is your tank. It's a rectangular thing. Okay. Now, originally there's a height of 4 of water, right? The original height is 4, and then it goes up. I'll draw this in purple. It goes up to 6.6 after he puts in the toy or whatever it is. So this difference in height times the area, which is this area here, is going to give you the volume of the cylinder. Or volume, sorry, not of the cylinder, but of the object, because the change in volume is just equal to the volume of the thing that was put in. Volume of thing. Think of it. If you change the volume, that's the volume of the thing that you put in. Whatever change occurred, right? So the volume, the way that you interpret it as, if I look down, if I did a top-down view, like again, if I'm looking down at this area is the area of the top thing. And then if I multiply that by the height, the area times the height actually gives you volume. For any prism, whether it's a cylinder, like a circular prism, that's what a cylinder is, or a triangular prism, or an octagonal prism, whatever it is, the volume equals area times height. Now the area in this case is 8 by 6, because it's 8 long. This is 8, this is 6, and this height is whatever the height was at that height of water. So our area is going to be 8 times 6, and the height is just the change in height. This is equal to 8 times 6 times 2.6, because we're going 4 to 6.6. This is a 2.6 here. So you get 48 times 2.6. That's your answer. 124.8. I get an answer of A. 45 is A. All right, makes sense. Change in volume is the same thing as area times change in height. A box has an interior side length of 18, and so there's a cube, right? It's a cube. You don't have to visualize it like this. I like to, just to show you what I'm thinking in my head. 18 across every dimension. All right. And then there's a cylinder that's thrown in there. There's a small cylinder with a height. It's got like 6. Very poor cylinder. Which is the following is so then they throw in a bunch of like packing material, it seems. So everywhere in blue is packing material. All this is packing material. All packing material. We have to find what's the area of packing material, or sorry, the volume. So if I took, you can, again, like I did with subtracting the areas with the walkway problem earlier, you had a walkway, so we're finding the area of this. We subtracted the smaller area from the larger one. You can do the same thing with volumes. You can subtract and add volumes. Like if I have, I mean, you can think of an example, but like if you have a total volume of the cube and you want to subtract, and you want to find the volume of everything that's not the cylinder, you just subtract the cylinder's volume from the cube's volume. So the cube's volume is just going to be 18. The length times the length again, or this is just 18 to the third. So we need to have 18 to the third in our answer for the signifying the volume of the cube, and then we subtract the volume of the cylinder. The volume of a cylinder is going to be the area. Remember what I showed you up here? Volume equals area times height. Area of a cylinder, the area of this thing up here for a cylinder is going to be pi r squared, because it's a circle. Multiply that by height, that's your height. So pi r squared, what's your r? It says radius of 6 inches, so 6 squared times height. What's your height? It's 12 inches. This is your answer. Room has a rectangular floor that is 15 by 21. Okay, I can do that calculation. 315 square, I'm actually going to write it as feet squared. What is the area in square yards? So think of, there's actually unit conversion formal way to do this. I like to do it kind of the ratchet way, the easy way. Visualize it in terms of how many square feet can you fit in a square yard. If this is a square yard, right? We know that a yard is 3 feet by 3 feet. So this is a square foot here, square foot, square foot, square foot, square foot. You know, basically we have 9 of them. And this, let's just say this was a square foot. This is 1 square foot. You can clearly see you fit 9 of these into a square yard. So if I just take the 315, divide it by 9, I end up getting, is it 45? I don't think it is. 35 square yards. And that's your answer, because you fit 9 square feet into a square yard. So you basically just divide this by 9 to get the number of square yards. 47 is B. ABC cabs and Terry taxi cabs both have an initial fare of a whole number of dollars for one passenger. The fare increases a whole number of dollars at each whole number of miles traveled. The graphs below show the one passenger fares in dollars. Okay. What is the cheaper fare for a 5-mile trip? A 5-mile trip. Let's just graph the 5-mile trip. It's going to be here. It's going to be at this point here. Now, the thing that's challenging is that you see that this graph goes through 2 points. Oh, this is a very poor drawing. But it goes through 2 points. It goes through this one and this one, right? But the thing is, it's a hollow point here. All these are hollow points, which means that the graph is actually going to be the solid point that's above. It's actually this point. Okay, keep that in mind. So this one comes here, and the other one, 5-mile trip, comes here. So one of them is 9, the other is 12. So the cheaper one is $9. 48 is answer G. The graph of a function consists of 3 line segments. What is the area under the what is basically this area here? That's what it's asking for. The way I would do it, break it up. So I'd break it up into 3 shapes. This shape is just a square with a length of 3 and 3, so you get 9. Let's just circle that. That's a 9 that we have to include in our answer. All right, and the area of this part here is, this is 2, because it tells you this point here is 2 from the left. This is 2. And this right here is just 1, because we're going from 3 to 4. 1. So 1 times 2 times half. This is the area of a triangle. This equals just 1. So you have to have a 1 in there as well for our area. We're going to end up adding the area of all these shapes at the end. And then the area of the last part, we already have a 3 on the side. We know that to go from here to here, this way, we have to go from 3 to 5. So this means this is 2. So the area of this triangle is just going to be 3 times 2 times half, which equals 3. So your area is just going to be 9 plus 1 plus 3, which is 13. 49 is B. Sum of 2 positive numbers is 151. The lesser number, okay. 2 positive. Lesser number is 19 more than the square root of the greater number. What is the value of the greater number minus the lesser number? This is kind of a hefty problem. It takes a little bit of time. Okay, let's just make up 2 positive numbers, x and y. Okay, and we know that x plus y equals 151. That's what it says, right? Sum of them is 151. The lesser number, let's just say x is lesser, y is greater. Lesser number is 19 more than the square root of the greater number. What is the value of greater number minus lesser? All right, obviously you just need to find x and y. Easier said than done. So let's just do this. I'm going to first solve this for y and then plug the y into there. So let's do this. It'll just make it easier. You could solve for x. It's already solved for x. If you try plugging this in, it'll be very hard to solve because you have a radical around the y. So let's just get rid of the radical and square everything else on the bottom equation. So again, this is equation 1, this is equation 2. Let's take equation 2 and simplify it and make it solve for y. So we get, let's subtract 19 on both sides. X minus 19 equals square root of y. All right, now we can square both sides. Y equals x minus 19 squared. If you FOIL that out, you get y equals x squared minus 38x minus whatever 19 squared is. Or sorry, plus 361. I'm going to plug all this into the y that's up here for equation 1. So I'm running out of space. So let's do that really quick. And I'm going to get rid of that as well. Okay. So equation 1. Let's do x plus whatever that y was, x squared minus 38x plus 361. And this equals 151. Kind of sloppy, but now let's simplify it. Let's rewrite all this. X squared, x minus 38, that's going to be negative 37x plus 361 minus 151. This comes out to 210. I'm trying to write everything on one side of the equation just to make it easier to solve, because it's obviously quadratic. We have to solve for this. This equals 0. You can get rid of this now. And so solving this is just a matter of quadratic formula or factoring or using your calculator to graph it out. The way I would do it, I would solve by factoring because it's doable. So you take two factors of 210 that equal negative 37. So you get negative 30, negative 7. Yeah, those two work. So you do x minus 30, x minus 7. So your answers are x equals 30, x equals 7. So for each of these x values, we have to find which scenario for x applies to the y that we're trying to get. Let's just try applying the x equals 30. So if x equals 30, 30 plus y equals 151. That means y is 121. So, and then that means that y minus 30, x minus, this is y minus x right here, that equals 91. So that's an answer option that we see. If you do the exact same process with the other answer option, or essentially with x equals 7, let's just try it. X equals 7. That means that 7 plus y equals 151. That means y equals 144. And then y minus x equals 144 minus 7. That equals 137. And clearly that's not an answer option that we're given, so we have to use this scenario up here. Confusing problem, but you just got to take it step by step. First solve for x, solve for y, and then choose the right option. All right, 51. List of numbers has a median of 25. Okay, so let's write them out. X, y. It doesn't matter how you write these out. I'm just going to write it in the order that's kind of given already, but like in actual order. 25 is the median, so okay. The mode of the list of numbers is 15. That means that another one of these numbers has to be 15, because in order for the 15 to be the mode, it has to occur at least once, or at least twice in this case. So, because everything else occurs once. So we know that there's going to be another 15 in there somewhere. We just don't know what y is. To the nearest whole number, what is the mean of the list? So we can just try to make y equal to 15 as well. 15 will still be the mode, but then the problem is that your your median is not going to be 25. Let's try calculating the median with this set of numbers. So we can cancel an option on the left, on the right. Okay, another one, left, right. And then we end up with 2 in the middle. When you have 2 in the middle left, which it happens when you have an even number of values, which in this case we have 6, you basically have to find the average of these 2 in the middle. The average of these 2 in the middle is like 22.5, so that's not 25. So this 15 here does not work as your y value, or whatever it is. So you need to find a value here that gives you a median in the middle of these two of 25. So this median has to be 25. You can see that if you put a 20 here, then you'll get 20 plus 30 divided by 2 equals 50 over 2 equals 25. That's your median if you put a 20 here. Any other value, you're not going to get 25 as your median. Again, it's because you have an even number of values, in this case 6, and you need them to come out to this value for the median. All right. Now, in terms of how you should go about finding the 20, you could do this same exact equation, use your mean equation, make this 20 equal to an unknown variable x, and make the average equal to 25. Solve for x, and you'll get the same thing. You'll get 20 for x. You're given the following system. R, S, and T are integers. For which of the following will there be more than one solution with real number coordinates? All right, let's just do what we can. I mean, I don't really know what this is asking for the first time I saw it, so I'm just going to try plugging in the y into here, because we have a system, so we can just try doing that. Let's do that here. So you get Rx plus Sx squared equals t. All right, clearly we have a quadratic that can be solved, so let's just try rewriting it and seeing what happens. Sx squared plus Rx, I'm going to subtract t on both sides to get everything on one side, minus t equals 0. All right, now we can kind of see where this is going. These are all parts of the quadratic formula. If you remember what that is, divided by 2a. All right, quadratic formula. If you don't remember what this is, look over the skill set again and look over the quadratic formula skill set in the practice page. But for this, you basically have to plug this equation into the quadratic formula and see which case works. So let's first do that. But again, we're not just plugging it into the quadratic formula. You have to realize that with the quadratic formula, this part here on the inside of the square root, in order for this to have more than one solution, it has to be greater than 0. this has to be greater than 0. Why is that? Okay, imagine that I put like a 12 there. That means you'd have negative b plus or minus square root of 12 divided by 2a. And since you have a plus or minus, you'd have two different answer options. Whatever square root of 12 is, you'd add that to negative b over 2a, and you'd have same thing, but you just subtract square root of 12. Okay? Now imagine if this was actually, instead of greater than 0, let's say it was actually equal to 0. That means you'd plus or minus 0, which is just the same thing. So your answer is only going to be negative b over 2a. So you're just going to get one solution if this is equal to 0. All right? Imagine that this is less than 0. If it's less than 0, then you're doing a square root of a negative number, which is impossible. So you're going to actually get a negative, you're going to get an imaginary answer. So that doesn't work. In this case, like I said, for those reasons, this has to be greater than 0. And for more information on that, check out the problem set and the skill study guide. But for now, let's just go through and figure out what we need to do. I'm going to plug this into the quadratic formula with the values that we have. Negative r plus or minus square root of r squared minus 4. A is s. C is negative t divided by 2a. Nothing matters except for this part here. Let me rewrite that and simplify it. We basically have r squared minus, this turns into a minus times a minus, so it's a plus 4st. Like I said, it has to be greater than 0. That matches this one. Everything else is out. The s squared is out because you have to have an r squared in there because this is what your b value is from the quadratic formula. So you're basically between, is it greater than 0 or less than 0? Has to be greater, like I said. Third and fourth terms of an arithmetic sequence are these two values. So third and fourth, what is the 50th term? So what I would do is first, so remember the equation for arithmetic sequence. I'm just going to write it out for you. AN is the term that you're looking for. Like if you're looking for the 50th term, then you have A50 equals, let's just say it's 2. I don't know. It's just an example, right? A1 is your first term. And then you have n is the term that you're looking for. So like, sorry, not the term itself, but like the index of the term. So if you have a 50th term, your n value is 50 for that term in the equation. And then your d value is the common difference. All right, so let's try to plug everything in and just see if we can solve for A50. A50 equals A1. What's A1 going to be? How do we find A1? Let's figure that out right now. So we're given a third term, we're given a fourth term, we're given 13, 18. What I want to do is basically just continue this down a table to in this direction. You can clearly see that you go from here to here, you go plus 5. To go in the opposite direction, you're going to minus 5. So we're just, if we just do this, go minus 5, minus 5, we get that the first term is 3. That's your A1. A1 equals 3. The luxury that we have here is that these terms are close to 1, so we're able to just go backwards a couple spaces and we can do this. If we had a term that was much greater, then that would be kind of difficult. So the first step was to identify A50 equals 3 plus 50 minus 1. What's the d value? So d value is the difference between consecutive terms. Third and fourth terms are consecutive because 3 and 4 are right next to each other. So common difference is just the difference between those two. That's 5. If you solve this, you get the answer. So it's going to be 49 times 5 plus 3. 248. The answer is A for 53. Let me just make sure. That's the answer. All right, if you're not sure how to do number 54, just graph this equation on your graphing calculator. But if you remember your pre-calc rules, this is the answer because sine squared x plus cosine squared x equals 1 no matter what the x value is. Do this on your calculator. You can check no matter what you plug in for x, whether it's 0, whether it's -3, whether it's 3,465. It's still going to be 1 regardless. Doesn't matter if you're in radians or degrees. What is the period? The period for any trig function is going to be p equals 2 pi over b. And your b value is just this number in front of the x, so it's 2 pi over 4. Even if it's a cosecant. So that you might be confused, like, oh, if it's a cosecant, do I have to do like the inverse of this? Like switch these things around and do like 4 over 2 pi or 4 pi over 2? No, it's the same exact thing. If you're not sure, I recommend you graph the equation. It'll look something like this. Like this. I know it looks really weird. Something like this, I think. And you know what a period is, right? If it's basically you have a repetition. After every yellow line, there's a repetition. So this distance right here of one cycle, that's a period. And you can graph this and see, okay, what's the difference between this point and this point on the x-axis? Because that's going to be your period. You'll see that it's approximately 1.6, which is pi over 2. 55 is E. 55 is E. And you can get the same thing if you do period equals 2 pi over b. Michael play a game in which he will toss a penny, a nickel, and a dime at the same time. He'll be awarded 3 points for each coin that will land heads face up. What is the expected value of x? The expected value of x, so think of it this way. If you did this 100 times, if you had that one coin and you tossed it 100 times, about 50 of them should be heads up, like the whatever the success is, the 3 points, and 50 of them approximately would be 0. So you'd have results that look like 0, 0, 3, 3, 0, comma 3, comma 3, comma 3. Maybe you get a bunch of 3s and then you get some 0s, you get some 3s, 0s. This would go until you get about 50% for one and 50% for the other. So the average that you get on each coin toss is 3 over 2, or 1.5, because it's the average of 3 and 0. Make sense? That's the average value that you're expected to get. That's per coin. Now he's doing 3 coins, 3 points, and then he's doing, a penny, a nickel, and a dime. And the value of each doesn't matter. But you're doing 3 coins at a time, so you're actually going to do 1.5 times 3 is the expected value for each toss of the 3 coins. That's 9 over 2. 56 is H. For what positive real value of k, if any, is the determinant equal to k? Now, obviously, I don't really know you might not know what a determinant is, but they define it here for you. So you basically take a, d, multiply them together, so that would be k and k, and you subtract that from b and c, and be multiplied together. Let's just do that. So our determinant for this thing is going to be k times k minus 4 times 3, and that has to equal k, like they said. Let's simplify this. K squared minus 12 equals k. You know where this is going. This is a quadratic. K squared, subtract k on both sides, get everything on one side, minus k minus 12 equals 0. You just have to solve this. You can factor it. That's what I would do. You can do quadratic formula, or you could graph it too. You basically factor it to k minus 4, k plus 3 equals 0. So k equals 4, k equals negative 3. Because you do k minus 4 equals 0, and so you get k equals 4 if you add 4 on both sides. You do the same thing with k plus 3. So these are your answers. These are the possible values for k that give you the value that you're looking for in this scenario. So you get 4. 57 is B. 3 problems left. All right. So with this one, we have, which of the following statements about n must be true? So I to the n equals 1. Let's just go through a series. So we already know that, like, if I have a number x and I raise it to the power of 0, it's always going to be 1, regardless of what x is. X could be 2, 5, 1,000, doesn't matter. It's always going to equal 1. If you're not sure about that, review the properties of exponents. Okay, so we know that if n equals 0, this is true. Now, the thing that's interesting here is that they use I. We know that I squared equals negative 1, right? But in order to get 1 out of this, we could also do I to the 4th. And that'll give you basically negative 1 times negative 1, which is the same thing as, I squared times I squared, right? Same thing. And this actually ends up equaling 1 as well. You could keep increasing the n value. Like you could try doing, you could try doing I to the 0, and then do I to the 1, and then do I to the 2nd, I to the 3rd, I to the 4th, I to the 5th, go on, and you'll find that for every 4th one, you get 1. It'll look like this. These values work. Basically, the n value has to be divisible by 4, which is what f is. If the remainder is 0, it's divisible by 4. Like 12 divided by 4 is just 3. There's no remainder. There's no remainder, like whatever. So for that reason, 58 is f. This is a bit of a tricky problem, 59. So for this range on the unit circle, sine is greater than or equal to 1 for all and only the values of theta in which of the following sets. So all of these things are sets. So these two, for example, are just two specific values. This is a specific value. This is a set, and this is also a specific value. Yeah. These are actually two sets. Never mind. But these are just two specific values. And this is basically saying that nothing works. There's no such values. So if I was to draw the unit circle, which I recommend you familiarize yourself with, at least familiarize yourself with this. The fact that at here you have a point of 1, 0. You have 0, comma 1. You have negative 1, 0. And you have you have 0, negative 1. Sorry, I blanked. This right here is negative pi over 2. This is 0. This is pi over 2. This range right here is what we're looking at from here all the way until here. And we're looking at when does sine theta, when is it going to be greater than 1 or equal to 1? Sine theta is never greater than 1. Never. But sine theta does equal 1 at this point and at this point. Sorry, the absolute value of sine theta equals 1. Because the sine value just corresponds with the y value on the unit circle. If you don't know what that means, look at the unit circle problem set or on the skill study guide, or just look at the skill study guide. They're both discussed there. But I could go into it in depth here and make this video really, really long. But just keep in mind, as a simple rule of thumb, the y value of the unit circle, wherever you are, you could be anywhere along the unit circle. You could be here, you could be anywhere along it. The y value always corresponds to the sine ratio that's happening there. So just keep that in mind. That'll make it a bit easier to interpret what's happening with the unit circle. All right, so for that reason, at negative pi over 2 and at pi over 2, the absolute value of sine, like you can see here and here, is applicable. So 59 is A. All right, angle measure problems. These are very common. Ray P say bisects LPM. The measure of LPM is 11x, and the measure of LPK is 4x plus 18. What is the measure of KPM? So LPM, let's just draw an LPM. Okay. PK, so it starts at P, like it says, it starts at P and it goes until K. Let's just say this is K, and it says it bisects LPM. That means that this is equal to this. This angle is equal to this one. That's what bisect means. If I give you some random angle and I say that there's an angle that bisects it, the angle that bisects it is going to look like this. And that means that this is equal to this, okay? Angle measures, they're equal. All right, now that we know that, LPM as a whole is 11x, and the measure of LPK is 4x plus 18. And since this is equal to this, that means that this here is also 4x plus 18. So what is the measure of KPM? What is the measure of KPM, which is 4x plus 18? We basically have to solve for x. You can do that by doing 4x plus 18 plus 4x plus 18 equals 11x. Solve for x. 8x plus 36 equals 11x. You will get 3x equals 12. Sorry, 3x equals 36. X equals 12. All right. Plug that into 4x plus 18. You get 4 times 12 equals, plus 18. That equals 66 degrees. And that is the 2019, 2020, or the 2020, 2021, or the 2018, 2019 practice test in a nutshell. Hope that was helpful. If you have any questions about any of the problem sets, leave us a message on the site if you can, or schedule a tutoring session, or look at the problem sets, or look at the skill study guide. That'll help you out. See ya.